You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Dr. Neal Lonky, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Dr. Francu.
Thanks for coming over. I'm very interested in this interview with you because you're someone who has a lot of clinical experience and also um, a lot of success into the business arena, in the medical business arena.
Right.
So I'd like to first offer the audience a little bit of an overview of your career. If you can just briefly tell us, how did you start, what happened, and where are you now?
Where did I start? uh, I started I started my medical school career in Stony Brook, Long Island. I had been a state Buffalo University, Buffalo college student. Wanted to move back to my roots where I grew up to go to medical school. Just happened to be fortunate enough to get there. I met my wife there while I was a student, and my family had slowly migrated to California from New York, so I was the last to move. And after medical school, I matched at Harvard UCLA, which is a county hospital. That's UCLA faculty. And it turned out, and I never thought of it, but my chairman had taken a sabbatical to get his MBA, which was kind of back in the early 80s, was kind of unique. And he was one of the pioneers of ovum transfer, which was a predicate to what we see today with IVF. So he had this entrepreneurial spirit, and I already knew that I had it too, but I didn't know what I was going to do with it. uh, I wound up taking a very altruistic route after finishing medical school and residency, and joined Kaiser Permanente, which was sort of like, why would you want to go someplace where it's socialized medicine, right? And I didn't want to have the impediment of trying to figure out how much to bill people and whether or not their medical care was going to be profitable right out of the gate. Uh, I knew it was a concern, but I didn't want it to be front and center. But later on in my career, I evolved into wanting to be a leader in that field. And I went back to school at age 40 and got a master's in public health and health policy and management. I was a cancer researcher by then, a prevention for cervical cancer. And that was another, I had a lot of interests, obviously. I was a teacher at University of California, LA, then UC Irvine. And I still am a professor, a clinical professor at UC Irvine. I've trained hundreds of residents and many, many students over my career. And I was elected to the board of directors of the medical group in 2002. And for over 15 years, I worked as a director, ultimately in charge of the quality of care committee, which oversaw what the medical group was doing in every specialty. And I will say maybe we didn't invent it, but I think we did develop the best version of what you would know as value-based care. So I always say no outcome, no income. We wish our stockbrokers would be like that, right? And they didn't manage your entire portfolio, only what they may earn for you. And they paid you and they lost money for you. So they took some risk. So our healthcare system took risk, and we were successful. Every year I was a director, we made revenue, we made margin, we made profit. Even though we're nonprofit, we didn't distribute it to shareholders. We built infrastructure, and we're very successful. And alongside of that, I've always been an inventor. So I've invented several medical devices over the years, many of which have been deployed into practice. Some of which I made a lot of money for other people, some of which I made some money for my systems, my people, and I'm involved in one now. So I think that's how you found me with histologics.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about that shortly. I just want to kind of go back a little bit to your personal approach to your career, and you know, being having such a broad experience clinically and in medical devices,
Yeah,
it brings up a trend for, success, right? And you cannot be successful if you don't have certain routines, habits that you employ every day in your life. What do you think those are for you?
very impatient man when I was young, and especially when you're raising young children, right? You want to get in your practice, take care of your patients, go home and be with your family, right? I was very family oriented, so that's part of the reason I joined my group is that I believed in group. I'm a team player. I played sports. I think for the practice of medicine, it's very comforting to be a team player and be able to live in that environment. And that's what resonated with me, and I loved it. Like, the boats rise with everybody in the ocean, right? So, but to be an inventor and be an entrepreneur, you have to be very patient because sometimes you're a futurist and the world doesn't see it the way you do, and you have to be teaching, constantly teaching, have that educator mode. So I always tell the people who sell from me that I set the table and then they cook dinner, because I'm teaching the framework of what's going to be devoured by the customers, right? The
Yeah.
practitioners. So you have to have a vision. You have to know how to structure it. You need to have to get the best people on the bus. I like Jim Collins' Good to Great book. We learned it at Kaiser. It's one of the offsites that we did, one of many. And my hedgehog for my personal management style is persistent patience and don't give up on the vision. Someone who's just on it. I try to stay very transparent. You never can remember all the little white lies you tell people, so don't lie. It's not worth it. Exaggeration, try not to do that because I know there are regulators all over the place, making sure you're telling exactly what your product is and no more, no less. So I sleep well at night because I tell people I'm a what you see, what you get kind of guy. Like I'm pretty straightforward. But if you have a good idea and you want to share it and you see things, um, kind of write it down and study it for a while and see if you want to actually commit to it. Only a very small fraction of people will commit to building something from nothing, right? And it takes a lot of persistence, and it takes money. It takes persistence, ingenuity, patience. And that's pretty been my story. Some of the things I developed when I was in my 20s are now higher tech versions of what I invented because computerization and AI, just evolved over the time, right? But the foundation of it, I helped develop like spectral frequency analysis of tissue to detect whether or not there's a pre-malignant condition going on in a mucosal tissue. Yeah, I did that in like 1988. Yeah, now it's 2025, and we have LEDs and we have spectroscopy and computers, but then it was your naked eye, a pair of loops, and a special illumination. And you had to use your judgment. So it had variability. Variability costs money. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I'm giving you an example of yeah. And by the way, emulation is the highest form of flattery, unless you're an investor in that core business who hates it because you want to corner the market, right? But when you have something very good, people want to figure out a way to do it too. And the last thing is, it doesn't sound like I care about being profitable, and I definitely do, but I'm not greedy, and I'm about the patient. So I invented low average sales price products for the most part that make big impact in the value of care and can help the human condition in some way. And I love that. It makes me feel good. So
Yeah.
that's part of life is not just how much money you make. It's
No,
how
definitely.
you feel, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think the change and the improvement in patient care that you did with your devices, it's much more rewarding for you than any kind of like, number on a piece of paper.
I'm going to give you one
But
example of that. One
yeah,
quick one. I invented a light that detected cervical cancer that used chemiluminescence, and I did some medical missions with it, and I did some sponsored visits to countries all over the world. That company ultimately was acquired. Let's say the assets were acquired, and the company that took it didn't take it seriously, and it kind of died out. But then it got reborn in emulated inventions. But I would say that in the end, I didn't make a windfall by any means, but I probably saved hundreds of lives because I went all over the world with it. So whenever I think back on that and people say, "Oh, you got screwed," I don't know. I didn't really get screwed. I just kept going, you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you can't stop. If you're really an entrepreneur, a energetic inventor, you just, it's like branches of a tree. The acorns fall off and they plant new trees. That's my analogy of what it's like to be a very happy inventor entrepreneur. That's what you do. You just keep going. Um, and like picking stocks, every stock you pick is not going to be like, oh, it's like Amazon or Apple or, you know, any of these Nvidia. They're not going to all be home runs. There's going to be singles, there's going to be outs, right? And then there's going to be some home runs. So you just got to be patient.
Yeah. So two things here. First, you know, the money is not the purpose, but you cannot do what you do without money.
Right.
How do you how do you go about this? How do you a what would you advise a young inventor in medical field to go
Right.
about getting the money necessary to, you know,
Right.
do what he wants to invent?
Oh, well, there's so many ways to get money now versus when I started. Um, there's crowdfunding now. There's so many different ways to get money. I have to say I'm a little bit naive about getting the money part now because I was very fortunate that um, let's just say I learned my discipline from working as a physician and then a director of Southern California Permanente Medical Group. And that is you're a very good steward of the resources. So you do your raise, and you can do it many ways, right? You can do it with an angel investor, your own money, you mortgage your house, right? You do something. You have a partner in life, and you hope you're going to make sure they're with you. You're not going to like create another set of conflicts in your life. And you get your venture capital is risky because you tend to have many rounds, and ultimately it's not your company, and they occupy your board, and then you're an employee of sorts. Yeah, you're a shareholder, you're going to get your return on your investment, but it's not like you're living the dream. You're always accountable to someone else. And I've done that. I worked for SCPMG and I loved it. I was very accountable. I knew what I was getting into. But if it's your baby and you're going to do it, you got to make sure you have some element of control. So, my journey was for my companies, at least the one that I have now. I won't talk about the predecessor because that was done on private capital. You get a private placement offer, you get wealthy people, and they basically see your vision and do it. This one I did, I got one angel investor. They got a substantial amount of the company, but I definitely, my family and I kept significant control. And thank God I was profitable early on and I could grow the company slowly. If you want to grow your company, like just blast off into the stratosphere, you get a lot of money and you probably waste a lot of money, but you get where you're going to go and you hope you don't run out before you get there. And then if you do, you run out of fuel, you're going to crash land. I was very careful because it was something I believed in so passionately to make lower genital tract biopsies compassionate, and I saw the vision, and I did it in my practice so much that I just saw how anxious women were that I wanted to make sure that everything was done the right way, but I didn't have the resources to make it quickly. So in 10 years, in about a decade, now there's 2 million people, 2 million procedures that patients didn't fear, and they got good results that were very highly diagnostic with a great patient care experience. And that catches on. And now I just learned that like there's TikTok posters that do this, that talk about my product because the practices are trying to tell the public that come to us because we care about how you feel when you get these procedures, not just the money. So yeah, I mean, I've chosen to be a steward of my own to strategically invest the money I raise and really negotiate the clinical research, the product development, the regulatory and assays, so you can get something on the market, the inventory management, the employees that you hire, all of that. If you're an active steward but not a control freak, and you let your people just create as well, it works out. That's how but for people who are starting out now, there's so many more options to raise money, including just publicly asking for it with the crowdfunding, right? I have a new business we're emerging right now that's taking some of the samples and we're innovating into the lab test business. And instead of just how you, I call it the means and the end. The means is getting the best sample. The end is what the heck do you do with it to make somebody's life better? Is it, I won't go into the detail, but how is it going to, what information are you going to get that's going to make a decision better for healthcare, right? Um, we're going to start raising for that company, and we are starting now, and that one's going to have to go faster. So I may have to do more of the conventional money raise for that. Plus, I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting what you said. You know what kind of surprises me is that people don't understand that there's so much money out there waiting to be invested in ideas and in products. You just have to find a way to reach out to those people, convince them of your ideas, and prove them right.
But you have to
Another
have a
thing that,
business plan, though.
yes,
Yeah,
obviously,
idea is nice.
yeah,
It's always better if you take your own low resource and make it like do a proof of concept. You know, say, okay, in my market in California, I've deployed, and look, I've got this gross margin, I've got this serviceable object, obtainable market um, of the total market. I've proven that I can get X% of it, and the quality's good, the patient care experience good, doesn't impact healthcare services, other things. Look how much better the group is doing. And then you get a bigger fish to come in and help you. That's where you get an early merger and acquisition. People are always thinking, oh, I'll just build it and I'll sell it to a giant company for $10 million, quick, let me just keep, it's like flipping houses, right?
yeah,
I'll buy the house, fix it up and sell it. No, that can work. It can work if it's a great, great innovation. And I happen to have a history of helping other people do that, where they just want to build it and sell it. And I always try to convince them. I see their personality, and then I know if they're going to do it or not. If they're not that, like, if they're not driven to actually see it come to fruition, but they just like inventing and they want to see it, someone else do it, then that's great. That works too. There's another level of inventors that just invent a lot. They're not business people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of my next question. I was thinking that, you've been through all these inventions yourself, right? And
Right.
at some point, a young person would think, what is else to be invented in this field? Because,
Oh,
these guys did everything that could. We have AI, we have computers now, we have technology. What do you want me to invent anymore? And,
it's so
in
funny.
my perspective, I would be like, there's so much more to be invented. Like, think about retroactively, historically speaking, everybody thought there was nothing else to be invented when they did something. Is
Oh,
that your
oh, I,
experience?
I love that comment because people always ask me, how do you get your ideas? Or like, uh, I tell the story of my father who was a bricklayer when he came out of the army, my grandfather. And I said, what did they do? They took bricks and filled gaps where they put cement between the bricks and they made a wall. It wasn't a wall, it was just bricks, right? But what was the secret? Cement, right? So somebody invented cement, right?
Right.
Otherwise the bricks would fall down, right? So it's like, well, not quite. The pyramids did pretty good, I mean, there was a lot of, but I would say that you see something. Have you ever seen something and you already figured it out, and then you went back and nobody ever wrote up what you figured out? Yeah. Like you had to get to the subway, to the train, and you saw a quick way to do it. Nobody ever figured it out before, but you got it, and you never thought twice about it. And that was the end of that. And it was, no,
Right.
you have to be alert to the fact that there's gaps. People say, what do you do, Lonky? I say, I just fill gaps. I see gaps. You have to see the gap to fill it, right? And usually it's something that exists in nature or exists in some other specialty, and you've experienced it subliminally or consciously, and then you take it and you move it to where you need it. That's inventing. That's inventing. And by the way, you can't get patents unless it's unexpected.
Hmm.
That's the word they use. Like, oh yeah, of course, you could use a brush to clean a pipe, but you could also use a brush to biopsy a cervix. What? No. And what's unique about your thing that's not already in the public domain? Well, here it is, and you explain. Because you're always thinking it's not the same, but it's an evolution that's so different, but it has a root. So the roots are always pretty simple, you know. Um, so I think that's the history of it, of where inventions come from.
Now, I'm sure, all the successful projects you had, I'm sure there's so many bumps along the way and maybe some failures and things that didn't work out.
The
Any
failures
exa
are hard,
Yeah, any examples of this?
because life throws you challenges all the time, and there are evildoers, and there are people that would love to see you fail. Unfortunately, human nature, there's jealousy, envy, you know. We're physicians. I know your route was as an anesthesiologist, you told me, right? We're kind of like a pack of wolves. Like the other wolves might eat you if you're too slow, you know. That's why I joined my group, because everybody wanted to get along and build, you know, you just synergy, right? Instead of competition. But competition is very healthy. You know, it is, but we compete as a group with other medical groups, right? So I compete as a company with other companies that make like products. It's just I created a category that I have it very well protected, but still, um, you have to have a thick skin. I have a trouble with that. I'm a little too sensitive. Um, I lost my train of thought, but I think I got your question answered.
Yeah. No, I understand that. And you know, anything that you can advise someone to avoid any kind of failures in your
Oh, the
field, what
failure
would you
part.
say?
Yeah, let me tell you about the failure part. So I invented chemiluminescent light for medical examination back in maybe late 80s, early 90s, developed the company, had a series of successes and growths. We did a public offering roadshow in 1996 with that company. I was not an officer of the company. I was the chair of its medical advisory. I was inventing all the inventions. I had a family business with my brothers. My oldest brother left Northrop as a high level engineer, and some of the projects he worked on are very prestigious, to run our company. And we had a series of attacks on our business. We did have some litigation, and I think litigation kind of makes you really sick as a company. It's an illness. And you get through it and you get to the next step, but you know what? We were always taking the high road, and we always prevailed until the very end. And what I'll say is, it's life isn't fair, because things happen that you can't control, that may not be completely um, legitimate. But you know, somebody knows somebody, or you know, there's some bias, right, in business, favoritism, and in the legal field too, as well. Obviously, getting the right venue. You hear everybody goes to a certain court because it'd be favorable for them, right? I try to stay out of that, and um, just be very transparent in my business dealings. Create very fair contracts, unless they're given to you by giant conglomerate companies who aren't fair with you all the time. But I had a failure with that first business. Ultimately, we didn't keep it. We had to close it. We didn't go bankrupt. But I took what I learned from that, and it evolved into the next one and made it better. So that's what I mean about getting back on the horse. You know, don't if you're falling off the horse and you're not completely unable to get back on, try, because that's your spirit. That's what you do, you know. But that's why I said about patience and perseverance and persistence. If it's a good idea, people will want to be with you and do. If the mission's good, the vision's good, the track record's good, the leadership's good, people have the talent, they communicate well. You'll usually get a business off the ground. And then
Yeah.
you got the next stage, which is the stewardship of it, right? Are you blowing through the money? Do you actually control it? Or is someone else telling you what to do? I know someone who had a tremendously successful medical practice and sold to a venture capital group, and they completely dismantled the quality and then ultimately the business of it by cutting corners. So just for profitability, they change the culture. You change the culture, you change the business. Change the business, it's not the business anymore. Then
Yeah.
people don't want to work for you and they leave. So if it's
Yeah.
a medical group, the other doctors leave the group and they go somewhere else where it's better. They don't want
Well,
to be
I
told
think
what to
we,
do.
to relate to probably a lot of people in the audience is the fact that there are a lot of major national companies, management companies that are taking over hospitals, centers, businesses, medical practices. And like you say, they change the whole culture in an idea to make it more profitable. But in reality, what they do is they scare people off, and people, they don't realize that people are the ones that matter, that are in
Right,
those
right. I
businesses.
agree. I
So
totally agree.
if you don't keep the people, you don't have a business. And most of them are either failing, or they're going bankrupt, or they're closing hospitals, whatever it is in medical field. And I believe it's the same thing in your field.
I'm a firm believer in pay for performance. And I built that into my group back in the early to mid 2000s in my medical group. I was the chair of the quality committee and we had clinical strategic goals. And part of the reason that Medicare 5-star rating for Kaiser was a every year event was because everybody was rowing in the same direction. Everybody had some incentive. Now, money isn't the incentive for our group. It's not the number one, but it's probably number two. Number two is still important. And people had the pride of achieving the goal, but they also had the reward. And we built that in because
Yeah.
people always think nonprofit shouldn't be profit, shouldn't get remuneration, right? Yeah, no, of course they do. They just reinvest it instead of giving it to shareholders, right? And that's like when you donate to a charity, you want to know how much is actually going to the charity and how much is going in the pockets of all the people
Yeah.
that are in the business, right? So that's what I can't remember what it's called. There's a term for that. It's some residual or can't remember what it's called, but
So, Neil, if you would think back with the experience that you have right now and the knowledge, think back at yourself when you started this whole thing. What kind of advice would you give to yourself?
to me, uh, don't be so sensitive. And everybody doesn't have to love you. But then again, you want to be I'm a bit of a codependent in a way that I try to make I slowed me down a lot. I just wanted to be um respected and admired. I think business you have to be a little bit more strict. But then strict parents raise very disciplined kids, and they're very focused, right? And they're usually happier, I think, because they know what's right and what's wrong. And for me, I think it's true in business too. Um, I believe that you don't go backwards, you always go forward. I don't regret a damn thing that I did. I learned every step along the way and I had a lot of pain with a lot of pleasure. It was like, I tell people it was like this, it was like that and then up and then back down and then up, but I was always going up. It's like a stock chart that's pretty good, but
Yeah.
there's definitely those dips, those corrections, right? Where you have to live through those months or years of not knowing whether or not it's going to actually work out. I have people in my life that I work with now, people that work for me or people advising me, and they're like leveraged, they're like they've bet they've put some money on the table or some time on the docket to make to see the vision. So maybe I think I do have one regret. And it's the same with your kids. Watch out who you sleep with dogs, you get fleas, right? Stay away from dogs as much as possible. If they don't seem like they're your kind of people, but you need their money or you need their time or you need their effort, find somebody else. There's other people there. Don't be so impatient because you have to live with that. And there were some decisions that my family, my brothers made, and I've made too, in the old business and the new business, where you just wish you would have had a little better judgment in who. It's the people thing, the culture thing. They got to match. They got
Yeah.
to match. Make sure you find people who have the same kind of personal management style. Now that's not true. Management style is different because I want different perspectives in my company. Everybody, no lemmings, but I want to hear different opinions. But I think the core value of their where their heart is, you got to have that. You got to have that. Yeah.
So what's new for you right now? What are you working on? What's the
Oh,
scene
yeah, yeah.
bring?
So I have Histologics, that is tissue-based technologies to save lives compassionately. So the compassionately part is key, because we take tissue from the body for different diagnostic and therapeutic purposes. Right now, it's in women's health. We've kind of staked our claim, and we've got a significant percentage of the market. And now we're moving into wound care for the last 3, 4 years. We're at a tipping point. I think that's a much higher volume business. It's going to be more profitable than women's health, but the profit comes from the heart too. It doesn't come from the pocketbook always. So that's a really great one, because you save limbs and you save lives. I've learned a lot of people in that field are so dedicated. You've got the mercenaries too, and the skin graft and the skin and tissue replacement market has been kind of rife with fraud and abuse, and it's been cracked down on. So you kind of see that and you go, yeah, but we want to help grafts become healed wounds. So they need a really good cleaning of the wound. And we teach that. Then you find out that they get paid to keep it going for a while, and they're not as much of a rush to heal the wound because they can put more grafts on. And it's sort of a perverse incentive. And the real high road ones, now the government's getting involved. So in the wound care field, it's really correcting to be very mission driven, very high end. I have faith that they're going to find a balance. There are some very highly valued grafts that deserve the reimbursement that they get, and the government's just sort of like saying, no, here's a price, total price fixing, which I don't agree with either. You need to pay for performance, you need to pay for value. So we're in the wound care field. We're getting into more of the diagnostics. We're getting into more of the therapeutics in those fields. And we're going into other specialties like dermatology, head and neck cancer, lower gastrointestinal, because all the technology can actually apply to some of those fields of use. So if you look at this, it's integrated, but then there's silos of profitability in the different, and that requires either a bigger company or you start a specialty company, which we did. So Histologics didn't spin it off. We just created a C Corp called Diaputic. And that's going to be focused more on what you do with the sample than taking the sample. And it's going to integrate with the Histologics, because the technology used to get the samples will be in kits that are going to be provided by Diapeutics through labs into the country. So actually, you're on a podcast. If anybody's watching this and you want to know more, can I give them my email address?
Yeah, I was about to tell you, how can people reach out to you for more information, and maybe just to be interested to get into
Lonky,
the work?
Nlonky at histologics.com. Our two websites that exist now are histologics.com and histologicswc.com, which is wound care. But we also have a small veterinary business, because a lot of what we do with wounds is applicable to pets and to livestock. And we're working on some interesting business in the veterinary field too. And also listen, if you're a budding entrepreneur, inventor, or somebody who needs advice, I like to meet people and have conversations, and I'm not like have the huge bandwidth. But for existing, I had some people who were dear in my life that passed from pancreatic cancer, and I had an entrepreneur laboratory, a CEO, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And I wound up working for him for 2 years trying to develop a test for detecting stage 1 pancreatic cancer. And I didn't get to the point where I could lend as much benefit as some other people, because I was more about what do you do when you have the test and it's marketable, and how do you bring it into the market as a clinical breakthrough. But I do that. I like helping people take from a vision and bring it to fruition, whether they want to sell it off or they want to build their own business. And then I can just basically leave when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Maybe
No.
sometimes with some equity, maybe sometimes not, maybe getting some consultation fees. Often in the beginning, I just want to learn. So if some of your I don't have a lot of bandwidth as CEO of Histologics right now, but I do for exceptionally mission-driven, patient-friendly and focused, value-based innovations that impact the healthcare services in a very positive way. They either improve the quality, get the access to care, the patient provider experience, cost effectiveness. If they meet those criteria and they're in breakthrough, I get interested.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Neal. I appreciate you coming on, and I think I wish maybe more people would reach out to you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I think you can advise on at a certain level a lot of people in this field. Thank you.
I appreciate you for inviting me. Thank you, Dr. Francu. I appreciate it.
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.